Hey everyone, welcome back to Professor's Play, the show where you can get just a pixel of deep thinking with your mostly nonsensical video game discussions. I am Professor Phil Chavot, he's Professor John Adams, he's Professor Brendan West drinking a drink of water at the best moment. And together,
sorry, should I have done it when I was talking?
And together we're professors who play video games. This week we have our second episode in the Persona 4 Golden series, in which we discuss our first impressions with the game or about the game. Essentially, we've been playing for quite a few hours. I put like quite a few hours.
More than we should.
No. I think actually we got to a good point because like we still have like half the game left, and Brandon's close to half.
Yeah. And you two have half. I'm not quite there.
So the past couple weeks we've been playing that. We're going to be talking today about what worked for us, what didn't work, some deep and wide. Symbolism. Yeah. And then other fun yet deep stuff and wide. I guess wide is weird to say when you're talking about like, you
depth
see what I'm saying?
And breadth.
Yes,
folks.
Breadth.
Yes.
So
of the wide. No, I'm kidding. It's a different kind of breadth.
And deep.
So one thing I wanted to correct from last week, I said that we were talking about the history of Persona in general, and I said that Persona 2.5 or like 2B is the one that splits the timeline. Mm-hmm. It's actually Persona 2A that splits the timeline. Persona 2B happens in the good split timeline
only,
and the Persona 2 is wild. And in the second half of, because it's like two halves of a game, the second half of that game, it's like the reason it's happening is because the events of Persona 2A were erased, but only by creating a new timeline. But some of the people in Persona 2 remember what happened in the other timeline.
Oh,
it's wild. It's wild.
Interesting.
But yeah, so that was a mistake I made, but I wanted to correct it so that no Persona hardcore fans come at me in the comments, or do, like we want more comments, so that would be cool. But let's start off with how far we got and like the difficulty we're playing in. Yeah. So since this game actually falls a calendar year, we're in mid-September, Brent, John, and I.
Yep.
September 15, 16. It's right about when the technically 6th dungeon becomes available, but it's the 5th really that you have to do, because the first dungeon is like the little liquor store that counts as a dungeon technically,
right.
But not really.
Right.
Which is September 15th, 16th. Brandon, do you remember like
I am in July. I'm waiting for Risei to recover.
Oh, nice. So like mid-July.
Yeah. Mid to early, somewhere in there.
Nice. Okay, cool. Key though is that Brandon has done the summer camp event, which is phenomenal.
Yes.
Brandon played this game.
Yeah.
He put a significant amount of time into this game, and
15
we're proud of him
hours,
for that.
which is probably more than like the rest of our games combined.
No, and it's like, and it was cool to see that. Like, I was reading this, and it was cool to see that you were enjoying it in the way that you enjoy Civ 5, which means you'll play it.
I mean, that's probably true. To be honest, yesterday I started my day with like an hour of Civ 5, then I ate breakfast, and then I played Persona and hung out with my cats.
Nice.
And that was actually like the rest of my day.
Have you noticed all the cats in Persona 4?
Yeah, and I always make a point of like trying to talk to all of them.
Yeah. Have you fed the one by the river?
What?
Yeah.
No.
So there's one by the river that to feed the first time you get a quest from the guy by the bookstore that tells you like, I feel bad for that cat.
Cats.
Yeah. You go feed him, and then after you feed that cat knows you feed him, so the cat himself gives you the quest where he's like, cat looks hungry, basically is the quest, so you have to like keep bringing him fish. And there's one outside your house that if you come back at night and don't do anything, you can pet to get like a bunch of stats.
Oh, tight.
Yeah.
No, I've interacted with that cat by the river, but I haven't gotten like.
He just goes like meow meow.
Yeah, he just goes meow meow, and I'm like, maybe if I do this like 800 times.
And if you order, that's why you should order the fish off the TV, because they give you the rare ones, and then you can give it to him. And then
I mean, he'll take any fish, but like I always order fish off the TV. What a weird sentence. Because
best place to get seafood.
Because it doesn't take you a time slot of fishing.
Right.
And also you can give those fish to the ghost lady at the shrine.
Yes, you can.
There's a ghost lady at the
There is.
I haven't met her yet.
She gives you the net.
She gives you the net, and then she also gives you rare gems that you can trade for good items at the underground pub store.
Oh, nice.
She shows up like only on dark and stormy nights in a full white dress.
Full white kimono.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
I've got to check that out.
Yeah, lady in white.
And like she's like hiding behind a statue, so you only see it if you walk around
all the way to the shrine.
Yeah, I spent so much time raising my courage specifically so I could go to the shrine at night.
Yeah.
Only to then go to the shrine at night and have nothing happen. I was like, well, crap.
Yeah, it has to be like it's cloudy or stormy night.
I mean, she'll be there every once in a while, so keep checking. But
oh no, I'm definitely gonna do that. You kidding?
Yeah.
Japanese ghosts.
It's like I mean it's a real person.
Yeah.
But like the implication is that people think that's a ghost that haunts that shrine. Because like you talk to people around town, they're like, yeah, there's like a weird ghost that comes there every once in a while, and it's just this like lady who's hungry, basically.
Oh, it's a real person?
Actually, that's never established.
Okay.
I like to think of it as a real person.
It's
I'm like 90% sure it's a ghost.
It's like, what? I'm just wearing my favorite white dress.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
When he hangs out in a graveyard at night wearing a white dress. That
It's
doesn't
not a graveyard; it's a shrine.
yeah.
I mean, it's pretty
At
similar.
most, it's a cenotaph.
All right,
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's the kind of stuff we're gonna get into today. So yeah, we're playing 916. Where Naoto, which is the next party member you unlock, has just been kidnapped. I'm playing on normal with high experience and money yield. So like difficulty. So because remember we talked about this last week, but this game you can change how much damage you do to enemies, how much damage enemies do to you, how much your healing items work, how little they work, all this kind of stuff. So I have all that in normal, which is the normal difficulty, and when I played this for 12 hours the first time, that was hard. Like I died several times, but then I changed my experience and money yield to be high, so I don't have to grind.
Gotcha.
John asked, why do shadows give money?
Yeah, why? So that was one of my first questions. I was
Yeah.
like, well, two things about that. One, why do the shadows drop money for us, other than it's an RPG? But like, why? Like, I'm going around beating them up, and I get like rich for a high schooler.
Rich.
I'm really loaded, especially because I play on very easy. So
No,
I just get all the money.
I have like $40,000. I'm rich. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why? Where did the money come from? What are they doing there?
So
to earn this money?
and this is funny because John asked me this, and I remember reading it like in a text, and I just like kind of cracked up, and I was like, because it's an RPG. But then I was like, hey, hold on, I can do better than that. So the explanation I gave John is that because the shadows are representations of the collective unconscious and like different fears that we have and different archetypes that we have, part of what people wish for is almost always more money. So
Sure.
they carry money. The shadows have monetary value that whenever they are die, that remains because that's physical.
Yeah.
So you pick that up.
So then my question
do
to
you
follow that.
I think that's a really good answer to what is ultimately
A game mechanic.
ultimately a game mechanic. So when John asked that, I was just like,
You idiot.
of course they give money, John.
So then my question is, if we manifest money in the shadow realm
Oh, good
and we
point.
get it and we take it back to the real world,
Yeah.
are there now $2
Yeah, I was wondering
with that
too,
serial
actually.
code?
Yeah, I think
Am
so.
I gonna get
Yeah.
in trouble for counterfeiting at some point where they're like massive amounts of counterfeit copies are coming out of this
That's like-
small Inaba town?
Right, why do we have like 1 million more yen than we actually made?
Yeah, for that, yes. And I think that part of the reason they don't notice is because like you are in a tiny town and these people never go to banks. There's no bank in town.
So they're just stuffing it under their
They're just
pillows?
stuffing under pillows.
Man, but at some point they're gonna be like, inflation seems to be centering from Inaba.
Well, the thing is, like, you move away after a year, though, so that stops.
It's gone.
Yeah, it's gone. It's just 1 year of inflation that's really high. Like, man, people are really spending money in this tiny town. It must be a good place to go.
So it's
They're
just
like-
a blip.
They
Yeah.
find a counterfeit and they're like, it's perfect.
Yeah.
How is it so
They're like,
perfect?
I can't tell which one is the
I
counterfeit.
can't tell which one, but they have the same serial number.
I know one of them has to be counterfeit, but I can't tell which one it is.
Oh, dude.
Persona 4.2, the feds come to your door. And they're like, how are you doing
It's
it?
just Dojima, like, how are you even doing this?
The Japanese treasury is going to be like, oh my god, like change how we print all the yen.
But one of the things the funny thing is that they would change it and then it would still
Yeah.
happen because
And
it doesn't matter how you change
And I was
it.
thinking, like, you know, it'd be interesting if like some of the shadows drop like old, like if you have a bill from like 10.
Because that's what you value.
Because that's like that's what it's like an
Imperial
older lady
Japan.
archetype. So like, yeah, it's like 1910 bill that like is worth more than the bill itself, basically. But you're still spending it like money.
The other thing that got me thinking about, so I was thinking about like money and how that would work, and then I also want to say like one of the things that bothered me about this game is that like nobody ever addresses the fact that a bunch of teenagers are like loaded.
Well, it's just you though.
It's just me. They're
just-
letting me pick up all this.
Yeah.
But like every week we go to this dumb department store and we have to wait for people to leave because there's a giant TV there that we have to use.
Yes.
And I'm like, guys, I have the money. We should just buy this TV.
Okay, so two things there. One, I think that like, I don't think that your friends understand how much money you have. First of all,
Do you think they'd be angry if they found
I think
out?
they'd be angry. I think they'd be angry.
They'd be like, wait, you're getting paid for this?
Yeah. Second, I think you're forgetting a crucial part here of the Persona 4 like established mythos. That is, in this game, the TVs are anchor points. The TV itself is not where you come out.
Oh, it's just located
It's
to
just
that
yes.
location.
So if you move the TV to your house, first of all, the gym would be like, how in the hell did you buy this TV that costs more than like maintaining Nanako for a year, right? First of all, that would happen. But secondly, you would start entering the TV in a different place. Because you have a TV at home, it's not the same place.
But there have been other moments in the story where people have been like, man, I wish I had the money to do X. And I want to be like, Daddy's got you.
Right.
Yeah, or then someone's like, man, I really wish I had this pair of like really big, cool boots. And I'm like, I can't give you the boots, but here's 50,000 yen.
Figure it out.
Yeah, I think I'm sitting on about $500,000 right now.
That's nice.
And I don't know what that is in U.S. dollars, but I gather that
Take
it's
two
like,
zeros away.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Roughly.
The dollar's a little weaker right now, but it's about that. Yeah.
Okay.
If you so it's still a lot of money. But if in my Persona 5 Royal New Game Plus, I like there's some stuff that can happen. So like I got into that shadow I told you about that like comes out of the chest.
Yeah. That
just kind of appears in Persona 5. And if you stay in the floor long enough, it'll appear.
It happened to me in the very first level.
Yeah. Yeah, you hear the chains. It's scary, man. The chains are scary. But then, so like sometimes you'll get like levels in Persona 5 Royal that are like just a single like straight line, and you can just like blitz shadows for like hours, right? So I did that, and like literally have 9,999,999 yen in that game because that's the max, or else I'd have more.
It's
great.
So does the Death Shadow like come? Is that in Persona 4?
That is in Persona 4, but it doesn't just come. You have to like open. It's weird. You have to open 20 chests, and the 21st has a chance of being that if you hear the chains.
Oh, yeah, that does not happen to me.
Yeah. You have to open 20 chests without leaving the dungeon, or without. There's like a bunch of different conditions.
Right.
But if you hear the chains, it means that the next chest you open might be that.
It's only happened to me once, and it was on the very first level.
It's happened to me like 3 times, and it's happened to me 3 times, and none of the times that I opened the chest, I got the warning.
Okay. Yeah, I'm doubling down on my strategy of running past most of the enemies.
Yeah, I run past most of the shadows too, which I think is a mistake that I made when I first played. That I was like trying to fight every enemy. Now I only fight the ones that I can easily stab in the back.
Right.
Because then I get like a 4 or 5 turn advantage. Right?
Well, I fight every enemy.
Yes, because you're just obliterating them.
Yeah, I mean it only takes a couple seconds. Just
Nah, I moved past that. I'm like, nah, I want to save the health.
Yeah, same. So why do shadows give money? We have established that.
Good to know.
But then also like, why can't you just buy the TV? Because you need to go to Jeunesse.
That TV.
You need to. It doesn't have to be that TV. It has to be in that location. So if they like this TV is old, we're gonna take it out and put a new TV.
But it does
here.
feel like at some point I could buy Jeunesse out from under Yosuke's
easily.
Just be like.
So yeah, you get a lot of money if you have the high experience yield basically, or the high money yield. And now I have, because of the high experience yield, I'm like over leveled, which is fine. But like I got over leveled way faster than I thought, and now I'm like super into it. Anyway, okay, so moving on to our one-word expression review. So we have that background of where we're at and like some of the stuff that we enjoyed here, as you can see. For me, I'm gonna go myself and Brandon first, and then John, you third. So I said like rhythmic, and Brandon said something similar. He said it gives him the like same thing he gets when he plays Civ 5, which is high praise, which is just one more day or like one more turn, and then I want to see what happens here, and then I'll go to bed. Oh, that was cool. One more turn. Oh, I want to read this book. One more turn, right? And for me, it's like the combat and I mean rhythmic in the sense of like the combat and like going to the TV and the day-to-day become this really cool dance of like you do things so that you can get better at the TV, so that you can get better doing things, so that you can get better at the TV.
It's that MMO.
Yep.
Loop.
But also, it's like when you are in the dungeon and you are properly leveled, it's so easy to get into a flow state where like the challenge meets your skills, and you're like, oh, I see a shadow, I'm gonna attack it with this, buff here, attack with this other person, heal, and you're like in this rhythm of combat that like, that's when I was thinking like, wow, I wish I spent more time in the dungeon, because I was just like on a roll basically, and it's so easy to get into that role that I think is kind of like, now we take that for granted because combat in a lot of modern games is really good, but this game is from 08/2012.
08, yeah, that's
so like it's called the press turn system, which they coined, and it's been lauded for a while because it changed kind of how like RPG should feel, because RPGs used to be like turn-based, like select this thing, which one do you want to attack, do you want to move to this location, do all these kind of things, and this game is just like attack, skill, boom, other person goes, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it also like this the dance of like the combat in the day to day and the TV in the day to day. It just reminded me of like the actual base like theme of this game, which is like ephemerality of all things, which is like days go by, you do things, and you can never go back to that day, and it doesn't mean wasn't meaningful and it wasn't fun. It just means you have to go to the next day. Right. And I'm like, man, you guys are
making you feel your own mortality.
Yeah, and I feel like this is something I was thinking about, but and we're gonna get to this definitely in the next episode when we know more of the story. But this game, it doesn't pull punches, but it veils them. It's like you don't see some of them coming. You're like, all of a sudden, you're like, man, I'm really emotional right now, and wow, okay. Brandon, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think the game's power. I think the word I use in there is addictive, right?
Yeah.
Which is that like for people who play Civ, that's a just one more turn kind of thing. I think it's because it gets you into a habit, right? And it's habit forming. There's so many little like dopamine paths for you to trace of like finishing that book or doing this or doing that. That I don't know. I think they did a really good job of pacing that, and I almost wonder about the ethics of this, because it's like because it's it's the little clickbait thing of manipulating that little dopamine release, right?
Yeah.
So you can get engagement.
And it's interesting to think about like how I think I mentioned this book before called Reality is Broken, which is like why games do reality better than reality does. Because like you finish a book in real life and sure, whatever. But in this game, finishing a book means that like now you can read a different book, and also you have higher knowledge, so you can talk to this one person now, and all this kind of stuff that you like. The mechanics of life aren't as well defined as the mechanics of this game.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what games that try to represent aspects of real life, which I mean, is a lot of them have to do, right? And going back to my favorite comparison, Civ 5, right? So your civilization generates a set amount of like culture per turn, a set amount of science per turn, a set amount of faith per turn. Obviously, that's not something you can really measure, right? But they have to make it something that is measurable in order for it to really work as a game mechanic.
Yeah.
And there's something very satisfying about that, right? Because, we do get that in real life. Like, if I read this book, I can talk to this person. But it's not... you can't predict it. It's not objective. It's veiled, to use your word.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It's like, I think, this is going to sound weird, but like I think you can measure how much culture and science and civilization like gets together in a month, but it's subjective and hard to do that. Whereas in a game, obviously they have algorithms and that are like really complex, and that's like a mirror to real life, but we don't see that happening until like maybe years later. We're like, oh, that was a really important period in that prince's history. Yeah. Right. So just interesting. Like, like why is this fun? Anyway, we'll get to that. John, your one-word expression review.
Yeah, I thought this game was just whatever game you wanted it to be for you at that time, and that was kind of a neat thing, right? This game has a very like Minecraft-y element in that you're not like building and crafting things, but if you want to treat it as a dating sim, it can just be a dating sim. If
you're not building and crafting like actual buildings, you're building and crafting yourself. Yeah. If you want this just to be a stats game, you can ignore everybody, hang up on them, and just like go to the ramen shop every day. Right? If you want Why would you go to the ramen shop every day?
Oh my goodness. So the first again,
it's not a ramen shop, by the way, it's a Chinese diner.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Meat bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first day I'm out walking around when it's raining and all my friends are gone, so I have nobody to hang out with, because usually I hang out with my friends because I'm just playing this game.
And this is like in the game, folks, okay?
Yes,
so, yeah.
From a role-playing perspective, I'm trying to make friends in the city that I just moved to, and my friends are all busy, and I don't have anything to do. So I walk into I start walking to random stores, and I walk into this random Chinese store, and they say, we're having a meat bowl challenge on this rainy day. And I say, well, gosh, that is something I would like to do. And you're thinking like, so the way that John played this is like, if I was a teenager, if this was actually me, which is how it's supposed to go. Right.
So he walks to a Chinese diner and they're like, meatball challenge, really hard to eat. Do you want to try it? And John in real life, in the physical world, would have been like, that sounds awesome. Ergo, John in the game does it. Yeah.
So I do it and I start eating this meatball and the text pops up on the screen and it says, the meat keeps coming and coming.
You
keep making your way to
you
the
don't
bottom
even
of the
see
bowl.
the rice.
You can't see the rice. It seems you've taken a portal to the meat dimension. And then all of a sudden it goes, you'll never be able to finish this, but you've learned a lot through eating this bowl. Your understanding has increased. Your knowledge has increased. Your courage has increased. And your expression. It's like... And then you have to pay this guy $3,000 because you didn't beat the meatball challenge, right? It's like a Buffalo Wild Wings super hot challenge or something like that. And I leave, and I'm like, that's it for every rainy day for the rest of the game. I'm gonna beat this meatball challenge. And so every time it rains, I go back to that restaurant and I eat ramen.
Yeah. You have to be like I think 4 or 5 in basically every stat to beat it.
Yeah.
Which is hard. Yeah. But it helps you raise all of them, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you want to become like a basketball champion, you can do that. If you just want to like hang out by the park or like pet cats, you can do that. Like the game really doesn't, unlike like Pokemon, where they're like, go beat the gym leaders, that's how this game works. Yeah. You beat the gym leaders in a certain order. Mm-hmm. This game really feels like the only goal is to pass time and solve these murders, and you are allowed to pass that time in whichever way you please.
Yeah, and
like real life.
And interesting because like part of that is like, and this is a critique as well. That's like in between story beats. So like saving a person and then recovering, literally nothing happens.
Nope.
In the story.
Yeah.
Your personal story, you can advance it in different ways, or you can choose not to advance it. But the game story stops.
Well, so like I said a goal very early on that I was going to behave just like I'd behave in real life. So when things are down and I don't have a lot of friends in the game to hang out with, I read. Yeah. Just like I do in real life, because I read a lot of books. I take in a lot of media in real life. And so I am working on reading every book in the entire game.
Yeah. And remember I told you guys that this was like, these games are min-maxing personified, right? Pun intended, where it's like, you are min-maxing, I want to read every book and beat the Beat Bowl challenge. That's my max. And the minning is going to the TV and doing combat, right? Some min-maxing is like, oh, stats. In this game, the min-maxing goes from persona stats to your personal stats to your social links to fishing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what this game does really well is, and I think, Brendan, like, you started noticing this too, is that like, several of the things are tied to each other, but not in an annoying way. So, like, for you to talk to the fox, you have to complete a little thing first on the side that you didn't think was important. Right. Catch a bug. To catch a bug, you have to talk to this thing. You have to, like, find a fish first. And it's like, so they do a really good job at, like, intrinsically linking several different things you need to do, not to, like, put barriers, but to be like, did you know you could do all these things?
Yeah, right? So a lot of the books that I've read, like I read a book on gardening, and that allows me to garden twice as fast and gain twice as much. I read a book on study skills, and every time I study, I get 3 knowledge points. Yeah. So I have maxed out my knowledge because I spend all my day reading, and I have to beat Yukiko, and we'll get into that later. But I have made sure that it's as maxed out as possible. One of the books, just is Twilight. Did you guys know?
Yeah, I've been reading it.
It's amazing. No, the parodies they put in there are amazing. Like the one that's like the Macho Man.
Yep.
Yeah.
That one's like I'm pretty sure that's the one that's like a play on the book of the Bushido, which is like the book of like samurai. Yeah, and it's like teaching you to be like manly and all this stuff.
Amazing.
And like you read it, and when you're reading and you're like, the book says all this stuff, and you're like, you're not sure you like agree with all this stuff, but he gives you more courage. And like, okay. Yeah. So you have to read 2 books. You have to read the knowledge one, the studies one, because like
skills.
You always get a bonus for studying.
It's great.
It's great. And then the other one you have to read, and I don't think it's available yet. And it might only be in New Game Plus now that I think about it, but there's a speed reading book.
No, that's I just finished that one.
That one is key.
That one's great.
That one's key.
Yep.
Because then you read every book.
You have to get it through it.
Fast.
You get it through a quest from the guy in front of the bookstore.
Yeah. So that book is key.
I read a lot.
Yeah, because that book is like, it lets you read everything else in 2 times speed. Yeah.
Basically every night that I'm not talking to Nanako, I'm in my room reading.
I go to the library a lot, especially when it's raining.
To study, you get a bonus point to study when it's raining.
Yeah. Nice. Which is why I always go if it's raining.
But that's the kind of thing that like this game does. That like, so when it's raining, John goes to eat meat, and when it's raining, you go to study, right? Which is like, which is like this game. When it's raining, usually there's not a lot of people available because like it's raining, so people aren't outside hanging out, right? But
I don't have any friends hanging out.
But the game gives you like multiple avenues of what to do. So like if you fish on rainy days, different fish show up.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, where do you get a fishing rod?
You have to talk to the old man.
There's a quest. You have to get a hook from the lady in the store.
Yes.
There's a series of things.
The way you get a hook, I think you have to show up to the store with a ladybug.
Yes, that you got from the kid that
Who
you
catches
gave
bugs.
him
Yeah,
a vending machine
so
soda.
this is how this game does this, right? So one kid in the shrine will be like, "Man, I'm thirsty today. I feel like having a lemonade." And depending on the day, he'll be like, "Lemonade, soda, steak skewer." And you're like, "All right, well, here's one." And he's like, "Oh, cool, mister. I don't have anything to give you except for this ladybug." And you're like, "Gross, but okay." So you take the ladybug, and then no one tells you this, but if you show up to the like there's a general store that becomes a pub at night. If you show up to that store with the ladybug, the eel that this lady has in the tank will react.
Likes the
and the ladybug will, and the lady will be like, "Oh my god, can you give that to my eel because it hasn't eaten in like days."
As she makes suggestive comments to you.
Super suggestive. You give the ladybug to the eel eats it. She's like, "Oh, that's why the eel was feeling bad. She had a hook stuck in her throat." She gives you the hook. Then you go to the old man by the river bank, and he gives you something to put on the hook, which is the fishing rod. And then when you fish, you can then find the ghost in the shrine.
Okay, how many pounds of LSD did this development team take for designing
And
this
actually,
game?
I was reading. I read a lot about like how to develop this, and a lot of it is the reason they have all these things in there is because when they were like, okay, we want to make a game based on a small Japanese town, so we're gonna make a game based on your hometowns, basically, right? But then every single person on the development team was from a different part of Japan, so they all incorporated all of their hometowns into this, which is why there's like a bunch of different like mini rumors and tiny quests and like people that hang out by the riverbank and the ghost and the old lady that opens her store as a pub at night because these people's hometowns all had these different things.
Fun.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, that's really cool.
and that's why they like connect all of them, kind of thing, because they're like, oh, what if like the reason you're able to do this is if you have a bug. Wild. Yeah, so like that's why you should always try to complete the quests because they kind of like sometimes lead to different things. Not all of them though, but a lot of this game's interconnected.
Well, and so I don't, as I said, I'm just RPing my way through it, so I don't look at any guides or anything, but I just talk to people, and then when they say, oh, I need this thing, I just like write it down, and you frequently just like run into somebody that's like, man, I love ladybugs, and you're like, I just got a ladybug from this kid.
Wow, what are the odds?
What are the coincidences?
Yeah, and also I should say, because when you get the bug catching net, it makes you look like a bug catcher trainer from Pokemon. When you get that, which makes sense, because like remember we talked about it in the Scarlet and Violet episode, listener/viewer. If you don't remember, go watch it again. Do it. But the reason Pokemon started was because the creator liked the feeling of going into the woods and catching different kinds of bugs.
It's a
right?
pastime.
It's a pastime in Japan. It's a pastime. So the kids do this here in this tiny town because it's a tiny town, nothing to do. So you get a bug catching net. When you go to catch bugs, it doesn't consume any time.
Yep.
So it's a free activity, and it doesn't do much, but it gives you bugs in case you ever want to fish, or someone's like, man, this one cricket is really rare, and you're like, ha, I have 7 of them in my pocket, and you just like keep them with you, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I do is the TV is always selling stuff, and usually
TV sales are always the best.
the consumable item that they sell is secretly a quest item for someone. It's happened like 3 times where they've been like, today we're selling a rare rainbow trout.
Yeah.
And then you'll run into somebody who's like, I really love rainbow trout. And I'm like,
well, luckily I'm carrying one.
I ordered this on the TV 4 weeks ago.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's still good though.
You didn't specify quality.
I have had that happen to me, and I was like, well, that's a fun coincidence.
Yeah. There are no coincidences in this game. Like, this game does not have coincidences.
Or just has all coincidences.
Ooh.
The game is a game of coincidence.
Yeah. If everything's a coincidence, then is nothing a coincidence?
It's the game. It's a game of the butterfly effect, right?
It is, yeah.
I mean, and maybe that's why we say that butterflies.
The butterfly is representative of Philemon, which is a representation of like love. But I do think there's something to say to like I don't know if the butterfly effect is the way that they call it in Japan, but I do think there's something to say like a butterfly flutters its wings. There's haikus about how like butterfly flutters, changes leaves and stuff like that. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely. You continue your thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the butterfly effect, it's connected to this idea that like a butterfly flaps its wings across the world, and then suddenly there's a hurricane, right? Mm-hmm. That very small, seemingly completely insignificant events can lead to widely varying outcomes. There's an entire branch of mathematics called chaos theory that looks at this sort of stuff. Weather being sort of the classic example of a chaotic system, but it strikes me that this game is a chaotic system where some very tiny little thing of like, oh hey, you gave a kid a drink leads to these like massively varying outcomes. And my kind of fear is that since I'm only 15 hours in the game, which is maybe like what, a quarter, probably less than half to be sure.
Yeah, it's like a third.
yeah, like a third. My fear is that there's going to be like one of these tiny little things where it's like, oh man, you didn't pet the cat on Tuesday the 13th. Well, here's Cthulhu. Like,
there is that, not to the extent that you're saying, but like, I'm gonna give you guys a mild spoiler right now. But if you never get the fishing rod, you can never max out the fox.
Oh no!
Which is like,
I don't have
again,
a fishing rod.
a weird sentence.
The fox is a weird.
Yeah, fox is a weird. We're gonna get to the fox here in a little bit. But it's like if you can never folks, you get one of your social links or companions is a literal fox. It's not a magic fox in the sense of like it's a spirit of a fox. It's a fox, but it also is magic that understands humans.
Hangs out on the roof of the shrine.
And can maybe teleport. Not sure.
It sure seems to.
Yeah, because a fox just shows up into the TV, and you're like, how did you even...
I think it walks into Junis, and people are just like, that's the fox.
No, that's the fox.
It does walk into Junis. When you gather everyone at the food court, the fox also shows up.
But
I don't know how.
The thing that like I think it teleports is because like I don't think it's standing outside Junes. I think it just like is there when you are, and you're like, oh, I guess you're here too. I didn't see you outside though. When did you get here?
Or the fox is much better at navigating that realm than we are, and so it just hops into like a random TV,
maybe,
and makes its way there.
True.
And
so it's using the TV as portals. Oh, call back to the
we can only get in from a certain location. The fox is like, are you guys idiots?
Yeah.
Like,
well,
not that hard.
Technically, you can get in from any location. You just don't know where you're going to land, and if there's going to be an exit around.
The fox is like, they're exits.
The fox
you
is
just
like,
haven't figured this out.
You guys are idiots.
You guys are dumb.
You just got like an excellent sense of direction. Reminds me of like Nibbler in the Futurama movie, where it's like, quick, everyone out of the universe, and grabs himself and just like pulls himself into nothingness.
Yeah.
And everyone else is like,
Well, there's that Naruto character, right, that like just like erases himself, and like his little hand is the last thing that goes. I always thought that looks ridiculous. But yeah, so we're kind of getting into a little bit of this. So like, how do we play this game? And as you can see, dear listener / viewer, it's kind of a game of day to day, right? So you have to prioritize different things, just like you do in your own life. And you're like, you go to work, and maybe I forgot to, I have to go to the grocery store to get something. And in this game, you have to do the same thing. And like, what I want to do tonight is clean. And in this game, same thing, right? It's not
prepare
clean,
a meal
but
for the next day.
Yes, all that kind of stuff. So, for example, I think one of us made a schedule. Points at John.
Yeah.
But I didn't bring this today, and I'm going to bring this next week. But I was just telling these two here that before I ever played Persona 5, so I like pre-ordered it, not pre-ordered. I ordered it, and it was going to take a week to get to me. So I went on like Persona 5 like wikis, and I wasn't reading the story, but I was like looking up all the things that would matter for me. Like I was looking up what all the skills were. So I was writing down like Zio equals thunder. Ma equals help everyone or hit everyone, and then it's just like pages of this, or like pages of which I didn't look up why, but I looked up basically like Reddit, no spoilers, which social links to prioritize, and like people would say different things, and I started like looking that up and figuring out like, okay, I have to get to level 4 with this person first, and then level 2 with this person, all this kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
So and then I had schedules of like, on this day go here. I had like Monday through Sunday everything I was doing.
That's what I have.
Right?
It's an Excel sheet that says Monday through Sunday. Yeah, because that's what you do. And it says like, all right, so Tuesday and Thursday, here's basketball, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Because again, I'm not looking up guides on Wikipedia. I'm just living this like I would do. And then I like write down like when finals and midterms are going to be. No, you're not
living this like you would do. You're living this like you're an adult with the knowledge. You have the knowledge of an adult as a teenager.
Right, because in high school, I'll be honest with you, listeners, I was much more of a fuck up than this.
So
I'm going back.
So you're doing what the game wants you to do, which is like, you're not in high school anymore. Maximize this.
Right. Yeah. I am an adult living in a high schooler's body that to study just has to press the A button.
Yes.
And I do that because one of my goals in life, early on in the game, they were like, Yukiko is amazing, and I do really like Yukiko as a character, but they're like, she's amazing. She's
Yukiko
so smart.
is one of your first party members.
Or your first friend.
She is the daughter of the owner of like the inn in town, which is like a traditional famous inn. Go ahead.
Reminds me very much of Komi from Komi Can't Communicate a little bit.
Yes, a little bit.
She's like, they're like, Yukiko is so smart. She's great. She always comes at the top of the class. You should ask her for help on your homework. And I was like, no.
John was like the Michael Jordan meme, and he was like, and I took that personally.
Yeah. And so I studied until I had professor level, which
is professor. Yeah.
One of the levels you can get to knowledge. It's completely maxed out.
We're professor in Pokemon and in Persona.
In Persona.
I'm only an expert in Persona right now.
And every
Of course.
time I get a question in class right or wrong, I write it down in my notes for later for the final so that I can study for the final.
And when John says, because John is like, he's not, conflated sounds weird, but like he's talking of the avatar, but like when he says write it down, he means he wrote it down in the physical world.
On a notepad.
On a
in real
notepad
life,
in real life.
so that I could keep track of this, so that when midterms rolled around, I scored.
Because they do. There's midterms in this game.
I scored at the top of my class, beat Yukiko.
And then John walked up to her and just stood there and was like, "What?
What? I just wanted her to know that she wouldn't be valedictorian.
Did you talk to her after? Did you talk to her after you do that?
Yeah, she's
then
really impressed with you.
Yeah, they say like they have like a dialogue addition for like all kinds of like stuff, right? So then another breath of this game.
Yep.
So if you do well in the midterms and you go talk to the person that does well in the midterms, they'll go like, "Man, that was really cool." Or if you go talk to the person that doesn't do well, Kanji, for example, they'll be like, "Damn, I knew you were smart, but like, my God."
Yep.
Kind of, yeah.
It's great. So, yeah. That's,
Okay, so I'm going to read out what John said here. So, okay. In many ways, I'm role-playing as the person I wish I was in high school. So what's amazing here is that, like, because you were talking about this game is a series of coincidences or a series of butterfly effects,
Yeah.
but you are the butterfly.
Yeah.
You're the
yeah,
center
in
of
ways.
all these things. Like, chaos is revolving around. You might as well be chaos from Hades, right?
Right.
Chaos is revolving around you, and you exist in your own little like
Stand there with your hand in your
Yeah.
pocket.
Yeah, little bubble.
All of this actually, something you said, John, just resonated with me, and I just got to thinking about it. You're like, you're role playing who you wish you were as a teenager.
Right.
I kind of am as like
I think
really,
this game does this.
I was
Yeah.
really studious as a teenager, but I was also really, really shy. And I am much more of a social butterfly in the game. Where like immediately, as soon as that teacher, the one with like the weird teeth,
Oh, Moroka.
moron, yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as he
You're going to
started,
feel bad about that in about a month.
no, I'm just using his in-game nickname.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as that's his in-game nickname,
It is.
just
Is
for the
it-
record.
His
that's-
in-game nickname is King Moron,
Yeah.
which is in Japanese is Moro King, because his name is Morooka.
Okay.
So
Oh,
then,
that makes more sense.
That
Moro
makes a
King.
lot more
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember Morokan, so
Yeah.
that's why I used moron. But, like as soon as he started giving me crap on the first day, I immediately clicked the one that's like,
Shut up, old man.
I was like, "Did you just call me a loser?"
Yeah.
And which of course impressed Chie immediately, and that's how she and I ended up where we're at.
Wait, you were able to say that?
I was able to pick that one. I wasn't able to pick. I picked like the second bravest. one.
Okay,
I didn't have the
yeah.
courage to say the
Yeah,
first
yeah.
one.
Because there's one that you're just like, you want to fight, old man, or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. No, and I didn't pick that one. But I realized, like, in game, I am, like, much more confident and assertive than I was as a teenager, for sure. So, yeah, to some degree.
Which I
there
think is
is
part of,
that.
like, you have that knowledge now.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean, like, the knowledge that in game. I mean, like, you know that now, right? It's just funny 'cause I'm going to continue reading what John wrote here. So I'm role-playing as a person I wish I was in high school. I have basketball practice on Tuesdays, drama on Thursdays, gardening on the weekends, reading every night, and dating on the weekend. I may have made an Excel chart. Nothing bothers me more than when the game makes me skip a week without warning.
It's so true. So there's a
talk
few
about that.
times in the game when like they're like, "Hey, we need you to help out with the first years," and you're like, "Okay, yeah, I'll help out with the first years." And what you don't know is they mean they're gonna skip you 7 days in a row.
Yeah.
Ooh, I haven't had that happen.
Yeah.
So and sometimes it's
stressed me
not
out.
clear, and I think it's on purpose where it's like, because it does say like you want to help out with the first year for the next few days, and you think it means like during the day you'll be doing this, but at night you have time, but you don't.
You
right?
don't. It just
so
passes
it happens a
through.
couple of times, and I think I think I have an answer to this, but I wanted to ask you why does the game do this?
Oh, I think it's that butterfly effect, right? Because the thing about this is, okay, so I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent. There's a branch of ethics called consequentialism, which is the idea that right and wrong, the rightness and wrongness of your actions is based on the consequences of those actions. However, one of the limitations of that branch of philosophical thinking is epistemology, which is how we understand knowledge, namely epistemic limitations. Well, we don't know what we don't know, and there are limits to what we can know and to the consequences we can predict, right? And I think that is true to real life, right? If Phil asks me to hang out and I say no, and that means that Phil decides, well, okay, I'm going to go down to the river, and Phil falls in and drowns. Sorry. right?
Racist. I feel like we could have come up with a better example, but
No
that's
way.
fine.
Okay, I am riffing here, man. You want to just like undermine me? some
Phil's
more?
dead. Continue.
All right, so
yeah, sorry.
yeah,
My ghost.
Maybe like in real life too. Anyways, like something like that. There's no way I could have predicted it, right? And so consequences of our actions can be far outside what we can predict. I mean, this is butterfly effect, chaos theory. And I think that is why the game does that, is because we can't always predict the consequences of our actions. So you decide like, oh yeah, I'll go hang out with you, Kiko. Well, you don't know that
That was the
because-
only day, yeah.
yeah, that because you did that with her, that means you can't prevent Cthulhu from
Yeah.
rising on the other side of town. I know I keep coming back to that example, but
Yeah, you're not.
It's,
you're not
it's
far
your
off.
fear.
Yeah.
I know it's gonna happen to me at some point.
It's
that
not.
I'm gonna
It,
miss
in
something.
this game, it's not Cthulhu, but it's an entity of similar scope and evilness.
Yeah. Like it's
Um,
Nagiroloth or something.
Yeah.
Well, he's also like not in this game, but like
Oh, I see.
he's the cosmic entity that
We're
is.
dealing with his vice president.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
His
Yogg-Sothoth?
No, actually, we're dealing with his Japanese regional manager.
Oh goodness.
Yeah.
The Japanese regional manager.
yeah, so, like, would be the Japanese-
Mythos.
Yeah, would be the Japanese version of like, this island wants to like not live anymore. So like Nyarlathotep's like, oh, okay, so if it's an island that speaks Japanese, I'm gonna send this Japanese deity. Right?
Oh, sure.
kind of thing.
Yeah. So not great. But that's my hypothesis.
That's interesting because I was thinking of it from a gameplay mechanic, but I wasn't thinking of it from like I wasn't thinking of it from like a thematically accurate perspective, right? Because it is like, and it's the same thing with because in this game when you come home, not a lot of things you can do. Because in Persona 4 Golden, you can go outside at night. In Persona 4, you can't do that until like late in the game.
Oh,
Okay,
Like-
so they like kind of added that in there. So they have mechanics at home to like entertain you, which is like talking to Nanako, which is your like little cousin / little sister,
Gardening.
gardening, and you can also eat stuff from
Random
the fridge.
stuff.
Yeah.
And the random stuff in the fridge is stuff that's like, there's a weird looking chocolate. Do you want to eat it? And you have no idea what's going to happen, right? Because it could give you courage. It can make you sick. It could like.
Do both.
It could give you. It do both.
Yeah.
It could make you more energetic. So like when you study, you do better. There's a lot of stuff like that, right? So it's the thing again. It's like, it's kind of like real life, so to speak. Where like I've had this Gatorade here in the fridge for like 4 months. It's probably okay, but I don't know if I want to drink it. Right?
And because I'm RPing as the person I wanted to
Yeah.
be, I almost never do that. Because
'Cause
I'm
you're
not
like-
eating weird shit in the fridge. I've been through that. I'm skipping it.
Food poisoning?
Yeah,
Interesting.
like I've had food poisoning before.
I'm not doing.
I'm not doing it.
It's not fun. It's not fun.
Yeah.
So
I don't care what the stat boost is. I don't play knowing my stat boost.
Well, I don't know. I guess because I'm in the video game and I'm like, well, this is going to be Brandon less inhibited. No, dude. If it's like, well, there's a chunk of wasabi. Do you want to lick it? I'm like, yeah, I do.
I feel like I would have done that if I didn't want some stats specifically. But I like when I saw that one, I was like, man, I can't believe I'm not gonna lick this wasabi right now. 'Cause I really want to, but I wanted to study. I had to study because of for you to start a confidant, you have to have max.
To what?
To start a social link at some point, you're gonna have to have max knowledge.
Oh, I see.
Dumb.
Yeah, I know, John.
John.
I know, John. You're a professor.
It
It's
took
okay.
me way too long to figure out that you could read on the sofa at night. And I
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, oh, well, crap. Here we go.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so and Brendan said kind of the opposite. He doesn't have any schedule, and you can see it's the opposite. Where John is like, I'm not licking this wasabi because I have shit to do, and Brendan's like, wasabi me up, dog.
I can't afford food poisoning. I can't get into Harvard if I get food poisoning, guys.
And
Right.
Brendan's like, this is a tiny town in Japan, wasabi, baby.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely like, and I've kind of avoided taking notes on purpose. There have been a few times where I'm like, I need a chart that. Nope,
Yeah,
not doing that.
not doing that. I'm gonna had to let it happen, and that's what I'm doing too because I charted my Persona 5 playthrough so well, which was really fun. And I enjoyed it, but like this time I'm trying to just be like, let's just do it.
That's the weird thing is that I'm having fun
I know.
doing this.
Oh, I had so
Yeah.
much fun doing that in Persona 5, and this one I just wanted to do a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all right, so and Brandon, you talked about like you've been trying to do two things specifically, which was like talking to two specific people, right? And who were they?
I believe I put Chie and Nanako.
Yes. So Chie is your like best friend who's a girl. Sheila, the first person you befriend who's of the
Yeah.
opposite sex.
Yep.
And Nanako is your little sister cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And so I have maxed out my relationship with Chie.
Wow.
We are dating.
it's
Um,
official.
Yes, it is, and I've been trying to do the same thing with Nanako, but my expression isn't high enough to explain death to her.
Yeah, that scene is wild, huh?
It's a great one.
Yeah, like the Nanako arc.
I needed it to like resolve itself.
Yeah,
I'm maxed
dude.
out with Nanako.
I love Nanako. She's
great.
She's adorable.
She's great. I think she reminds us all. They did such a good job at writing a child character that like almost everyone can relate to somehow.
Yeah, she's just really innately
Yeah.
likable and cute. Like,
It's great.
yeah, it's just immediately like, oh, Nanako's lonely? Well, heck yeah, I'll hang
Yeah.
out with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the game is like
of course.
Nanako is looking lonely. ... And you're like, God damn it.
Right.
You're like guilt you into
Well,
it, right?
And it kills me because, like, for a lot of my childhood, I was home alone at nights
Yeah.
like that, and so I'm like, I will save you.
Yeah.
Right.
I
And
can't
then-
not do that. And then on top of that, her Persona Link is the Justice Arcana,
Yeah.
which is the Arcana of the Personas that I like playing anyway.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So double
and it-
reinforced.
And it's also
Nice.
like, because it's really well done, because it's like, oh, you want to hang out with Nanako? Cool. You two play a game. Cool. You two watch TV. And then Nanako's all of a sudden like, what happens when people die? And you're like, this is such a real thing.
Uh-huh.
And the game is like, you can't talk about this yet because you don't know how to talk about it. So you have to like build up your own like understanding and expression, right? To be like, well, this is what happens.
well, and it's so hard
Because
to
Nanako's mom passed away like 2 years ago.
I'm always trying to like walk this fine tightrope with her because again, I'm not looking for like the perfect answer, the right answer that will give me game mechanic points. I'm just trying to like role play this, and so sometimes she'll look at you and she'll be like, "Are you better than my dad?" And I'm like, and I think the game rewards answers like, "Yeah, I'm awesome. Your dad sucks." But I'm like,
the game likes the answers the most where you're like, not better, but I am your brother or something. It doesn't want you to badmouth the dad.
good. Okay, that makes me feel better
No, it
because
doesn't
I
want
feel
you-
like that's like
'cause
the top level choice.
If
of
you
diamonds.
do the Dojima social link too, you learn like his arc is also awesome.
I've done it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
also
amazing.
awesome.
Yeah. So I'm really invested in making sure my host family is like healed therapeutically by the time I leave.
Yeah.
But by a teenager.
By teenager.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, it's wild. So the way I didn't make a schedule because I didn't want to. Like Brandon was like, I'm gonna do this, and I'm like, no, you know what? No, I'm not. Next time I stumble on this, I'm gonna do it, right? And then sometimes I'm like, oh, I gotta remember to like do this tomorrow, but I never like write anything down.
right.
But I did make a very extensive one for when I play, and I would change it like every couple of weeks or so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was wild. But so like I basically, because I know the story, I've been basically trying to just focus only on social links. So I almost never do anything else unless it's a stat that is required for one of my social links. Like I know the ones I'm gonna max out. So I maxed out Yukiko because she's the best magic damage.
So good.
She is.
What's the word I'm looking for?
Dealer.
Dealer. Thank you.
DPS.
She's the best one. She does so much
DPR.
damage, and she learns Mind Charge, I believe, which is like a move that you learn that the next time you use a magic attack, it does over double damage.
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh, jeez.
and you can learn that, and Chia learns that for
Physical.
for physical, and Kanji can learn that if you play her cards right.
Mm.
Okay. So I maxed out Yukiko. I maxed out Marie because of endgame stuff. And then, which was difficult because she doesn't show up a lot. But once she does, then it's pretty easy.
Stop reading my poetry, you stupid jerk.
So Marie is like this character that they introduced in Persona 4 Golden that is a being that they describe as not of this world, like the Velvet Room, right? Which is the room you go into to fuse your personas, and it's like they are advisors of the god that's trying to help you, basically. So Marie shows up, and they're like, we don't know who this person is, but she's like us, not like you, so she's going to live here. And she's trying to figure out her memories, and one of the things that, and her arc is also really interesting, and one of the things that she does is she writes poetry. And
Bad poetry.
Bad poetry. Okay poetry. Some of them are bad, some of them are okay.
Fair.
And then she, like, whenever you read her poetry, she does this really teenagery thing where she'll, like, call you a bunch of names really fast. So in the game puts them all as if it's one word. So it's like, I hate you, super jerk, get out of here. And it's like one single word, right? So for you to read it, you have to like read it like that. And it's like a really clever like mechanic. Right? I've never really seen games that do that, where it's like they put a bunch of words together to signify like
You're reading really fast.
they're saying it really fast under their breath kind of thing.
Yep.
So really interesting. Her arc is, it's not like interesting as if like personally, but like there's some real deep symbolism there we can get to in the next episode, because when you guys maybe get a little deeper into that, or we'll do the full spoiler cast in the next episode. But I'm basically prioritizing social links based on who is more valuable in the dungeon. Okay.
Yes.
So the next one I'm prioritizing right now is Rise, because she's the
Perfect in the dungeon. Yep.
she's amazing.
It's the only reason I'm hanging out with her generally.
I like her arc, but Rise in the dungeon is because she's your support. No, she's your like navigator.
Yeah, like your
she does
analyst.
such a better. She does such a better job than Teddy. It's not even close.
Yeah.
And she's
Well,
probably
Teddy kind of sucks.
Teddy sucks on multiple levels. We can talk about that later. But Rise is like she has all these things where like she'll tell you what their affinities are, so you can hit weaknesses. She'll like heal you depending on how far you get. And if you hang out with her, she gets bonus skills that are like broken. And if you were playing this in hard, it would be essential, I want to say. Yeah. Then I'm prioritizing Kanji because he's my best physical damage dealer, and he's also awesome.
He's great.
I'm going to prioritize Naoto when she becomes available. And then the other ones I have them in order of like, then I have Chie because she's in my dungeon crawling party. I'm at level 9 with her, I think, already. So like I just need one more hangout.
Right.
And Nanako I haven't done as much just because I know her story and I don't have enough expression, so I haven't really been focusing on that. But I want to. And I barely hang out with Yosuke. I don't really hang out with Yosuke because I don't really use him in the dungeon, even though he has Maka Jam, which is a skill that silences people so they can't use skills. And it helps a lot when you're dungeon crawling, but like I don't really... When I'm dungeon crawling for like stats or just trying to save SP, I click the rush button anyway. So like they're just attacking without me doing anything.
Gotcha.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I hang out with Yosuke a lot just because I like him as a person.
Yeah.
And I hang out with him a lot. Yeah, Yosuke and Yukiko are the two that I like.
Nice.
Hang out with repeatedly, and then Rise is maybe the only one in the game that I hang out with not from an RP purpose because it's
so helpful.
Good. It's
so
so
helpful.
useful.
So helpful. And in Persona 4 Golden, it's better because every time you hang out, you get a bonus skill.
Yep.
That they wouldn't have learned. Because like her skills that she learns automatically, like with leveling up, are pretty good. And she's basically in step with you because she's in every battle just like you. But the bonus skills are amazing.
And I'm sure Phil's figured this out by now, but when she unlocks the ability to like identify where chests are, you can use that to quick navigate the dungeon.
Oh yeah.
Because the rooms with chests aren't the rooms with stairs.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you can know which doors
And
you don't want to go into.
she gets that, and she gets the identifying enemies on the map.
Yeah.
Which is also
Does she fight?
No.
She doesn't, right?
Her persona is what's some like a
Guy
radar.
Guy in a chair.
Yeah. It's the guy in a chair.
Okay.
Yeah, she's Ned.
Yeah, like I said, I'm at the point in the game where I'm waiting on her to recover.
Yeah, next time you go to the dungeon, it's gonna be like life changing.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, I cannot wait for
Yeah.
that because one thing that I don't like about this game, and I'm sure I put it in there, is like the aimlessness of the dungeons.
Yeah, so we'll get to that here in a little bit. Let's talk about one thing real quick, and I think we kind of already did, but I wanted to make sure, like, because I made a schedule for Persona 5, John made a schedule for this. We're all like aware of like, oh, on this day I have to do this. If it's raining, I have to go study. I can't do anything else. Sorry, can't hang out today.
Right.
It's raining, right?
Rain is meat day.
Yep. My goodness.
Let's just go. We gotta have that on a wall somewhere.
Here's a pixel of depth. That's good. Pixel of depth that I can't really. I don't have an answer to this, and I think it's like like my best answer is that's like fun is autotelic. It's fun because it's fun. But why is ultra scheduling fun? Why is this fun? Like really, why?
Maybe maybe we're asking the wrong question. Maybe
It's
auto scheduling.
when is it fun? No, I'm kidding.
maybe ultra scheduling isn't fun, but because it's so fun, John wants to ultra schedule.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what
Yeah, that's interesting because you want to make sure you do all the fun things. You ultra schedule so that then you do all the fun things, and then that schedule itself is the method of getting there.
I think that's closely,
interesting.
Closely accurate. Yeah, and the schedule's the method of getting there. And then also, I will say that
Wow, I like
things that are tedious
Yeah.
in real life are much less tedious
'Cause you
in
press a button.
Persona because you press a button,
Yeah.
right? Like even reading. So I like to read. I read a lot of books in real life, but I don't ever sit down and read the Expert's Guide to Fishing cover to cover, which sounds really boring. But in Persona,
Sorry,
all
any
that
fishers
takes-
out there. I'm sure it's
Sorry.
great for you guys.
I'm sure it's wonderful.
Yeah.
But I don't ever do it because I just I don't want to actually invest that kind of time. But in Persona, all it is an A button, and so it's easier to schedule. And I know that if I do that A button 3 times, then I will get the ability to have a conversation with somebody that I wouldn't before.
Yeah.
And so I think it is that. I think it's that like the scheduling gets us to the valuable interactions in a non-painful way.
Yeah.
In a way that doesn't like. And you run into this problem a little bit with VR games. If any of you have ever played VR games, one of the things that VR games lose that I don't like about VR games occasionally is like, in order to kill 4,000 orcs in a virtual reality game, I have to actually swing a sword, and it gets exhausting. It is actually physically tiring, and that does take away from the fun of the game. Whereas in this game, we have fun things I want to get to, and all I have to do to get to them is press a couple of A buttons, as long as I press them on the right day. And that incentivizes that scheduling.
For sure. And I think to go with, there's a couple of things I want to bring up there, but to go with like Brendan's point of like, it's not the schedule, it's not making a schedule that's fun, it's what the schedule provides, right? I think it's also the schedule provides you an ability to avoid as much FOMO as possible.
Right.
Because like, and not that like I don't, part of why I don't want to schedule is because I want to feel that like, oh man, I could have done that. Well, next time I know. But like if you schedule, you're like, there won't be a next time. I will do this now kind of thing, where you're like actively avoiding FOMO, which is like, as a teenager, you're also trying to do, right? You're like, I want to hang out with my friends. I want to do this. I want to do all these things. I want to play games. I want to all these things. So it's another thing of like, this game is min-maxing. It is FOMO, and how do you avoid the FOMO and min-max? Scheduling, so that you can do all the fun things, so that you don't get FOMO and you min-max everything.
So it's also an avoidance of suffering?
I think so.
That's why we schedule, and therefore it makes the scheduling feel fun.
Which, I mean, I think it's part of real life too, right? Why do I schedule stuff? So that I don't forget to do it. But you were talking about how like VR games and like the physical, and I'm going to use a term here from like video game research, demand, right? Which is like games, we have mental models for how games should work, right? Where like games should press X to doubt, press A to jump, press whatever to like steer, right? And that's why we have developed controllers that are different than what we expect them to look like, and even though they like are theoretically they would make more sense for us to play games with that controller, we prefer to use an actual like PS4 controller or whatever, because we're so used to that shape and where the buttons are that makes more sense to us than like, oh, you're playing VR, for you to pick up the sword you got to put your hand out and pick it up, and I'm like, yeah, but can I just press A, right? So part of it is that the physical demand of like playing VR stops you from playing game, because like I get home from work, I don't want to then stand for 2 hours and jog. Right? That's not what I want to do, because that's not what games usually are. But like there's an interesting like thought exercise of like, what if games had started as VR and then they were like, now you can press A to do this stuff? You'd be like, I guess, but it's not the same.
It seems a little boring.
Right? So it's just an interesting like way of how we conceive that games should work. And the physical demand is a real thing. I stopped playing Skyward Sword, the Zelda game, because you have to use the controller as a sword. And if you're not, you can use it in the handheld, but it's super clumsy in the handheld. So it's easier to do it as a sword, but like I'll get home and I'm like, for me to like open a dungeon door, I have to like make concentric circles for like 30 seconds. I'm like, I don't. Can I just press A at the right timing? Like,
well, but it's true even with a mental demand. So like we talk about
so there's
finals.
4 levels of demand: mental, physical, emotional, and social.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
But it's true in the mental demand in this game too. So like when I think about like studying for a real life test, I have to remember and work very hard to study a whole range of things, and then probably practice it a couple of times to critically be able to pass like algebra, right? Sure. With that. In this game, you have to memorize like 4 fun facts.
Yeah.
And so it's fun. Like it's a good time. Like the facts are fun. I learned some things that I didn't know before, even when I miss questions, because every now and then the health teacher asks me things about like high level.
Oh no, the health teacher questions are the craziest.
Wild. Because I can get most of the other questions, but his questions are awful. But even when I miss them, I learn something, and then all I have to do is remember that exact answer. It's very like plug and chug.
They ask it a little differently in the midterm to try to get you if you're really paying attention.
To see. Yeah. But for the most part, it's plug and chug, which means it's bad learning. Don't teach that way, anybody who's actually out there teaching. Yeah. But it's good fun. Yeah. Because it's easy. It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, and you do come up with some fun facts. There's a couple of the health instructor who's the PE teacher, and he's just like, a couple of them I'm like, what is the like scientific term for brain freeze? And I'm like, what? And they're all like, the thing is like they don't put like one that's like cerebral freeze, and the other one is they're all like technical Latin terms that have some variation of the word cranium in them. So you're like, oh my god, it could be all of these. Yeah, I guess wrong.
Yeah. Yep. Me too on that one. The one I just learned the other day, I did guess right, but the one I learned that was really interesting was that in Japan, for haikus that are based on seasons, they have particular words that are generally only used with that haiku. So their word that means basically brisk, you could use it in any term to say brisk, but when you use that brisk, it really means fall. Brisk.
Yeah, when you use brisk in a haiku, it means this haiku is happening in fall.
Yeah. Automatically. Yeah. Which is a really cool linguistic thing that I nerded out for a long time and looked up on Wikipedia to like look up some of those.
If you know, that's why haikus are sort of hard to translate, not only because like, you know, words translating is hard from Japanese to any language, especially Western languages, but also because if someone says like the brisk wind, the ephemerality of life, it's getting colder, you're like, what the hell does that even mean? But in Japanese, all those kanji interact with each other to like create not puns, but like intrinsic meanings that you don't super get in English. Yeah,
that's super cool. Did not know that because I haven't studied Japanese like you have, and it was neat to learn that. So Persona's taught me some things.
Yeah, they taught like one thing. The questions are great, but one thing that Persona 5 does, again, Persona 5 is like, this game is amazing, but Persona 5 kind of takes everything and like turns it to 11. Yeah. One thing they do is like all the questions in class vaguely or on the nose match what's going on in your real life, but without saying that.
That's fun.
Right. So one of them is like you are. One of the characters you unlock is an artist, and when you're about to unlock this character, the question in class is like, how many colors do you need in order to be able to color the map of the world? What's the minimum number of colors you need to be able to discern the map of the world?
Interesting.
Which is 4. With 4 colors, you can
none of the continents are touching.
You can paint anything that doesn't touch each other of the same color ever. With 4 colors
in the globe.
Yeah. Or no, anything. If you have a design on the sheet and you use 4 colors, there's a way of combining that none of the colors will ever touch each other.
Interesting.
None of the colors will so there'll never be like green square next to green square. If you have 4 colors, you can always have a combination
in a map of the world.
Yes.
Because you could just draw a circle and then draw a ring.
Shapes, any shapes. Yeah. So it's really interesting. And they all have stuff like that. One is about the placebo effect, because in Persona 5 you are going to people's minds and changing them physically, metaphysically. And they talk about what is the placebo effect? Well, you believe one thing, but it's not actually happening, but it's happening because you believe it. Mm-hmm. So they do a really good job at that. So this one is a little more just random, except there are a couple of them that are related. So the one around where you unlock kanji, the answer to the question is overcompensation.
Yeah, for your muscles.
Which is around what kanji is doing with his dungeon, which we might get to in a little bit, but we'll probably talk about that the next episode, because Kanji and Naoto's Dungeons and Shadows are probably the most contentious part of the entire Persona series.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that in the next episode, because we'll cover them both of them together. Not that they are conflated, but similar themes.
I haven't met Naoto, but that about Kanji doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. That's why I want to wait until do the next one.
No, I wasn't gonna.
No, yeah, I'm just saying because people who have played this game, I think, are waiting for this discussion.
Yeah.
Some things that we talked about this a little bit, so let's move on to how we play the game. Where I talk about things that we like and don't like, but I just want to explicitly say them, I guess. So I said things that I like. The voice acting is I played in English before, and I really enjoyed it. Troy Baker's Kanji is phenomenal. Most of the voice acting is great. Yuri Lowenthal as Yosuke is really good.
Yep.
So is Laura Bailey. Yukiko? She's Rise. She's Rise. She's good too. Actually, I think Laura Bailey does a better job than the Japanese voice actress for Rise. But I think if you have the dialogue in autoplay, this is one of the rare games where the timing actually is nailed. Not always, but sometimes you have the autoplay, and whenever Kanji's saying something and he gets interrupted, it's not but then I said, next voice line, it's but then I said, shut up. It's shut up, Kanji, and it's immediate, and it really creates a immersive environment.
Which means that they coded the timings into the actual chat. They didn't just say chat ends, wait 1 second, begin next chat, copy and paste. They've coded every single one.
Yeah, which is really well done. And Kanji, I like how Kanji will say stuff like Yosuke will say something absolutely ridiculous, and Kanji's nah, man, you can't say that. Or and he'll say it in a way that's super rude without him realizing it. So I think Yosuke is he's trying. Happens in the summer camp, right? He's trying to get because he's a teenage boy. He's trying to get the girls to go swimming.
Yep.
Right. So he says he's saying oh no, I don't really care about this, and Kanji's like, you were talking for the last 4 hours about how excited you were about this, man. And he punches him. He's like, shut up, dude, which is such a real interaction.
It is.
And I really enjoy that. I also like how small the town is, but how and there's really 9 locations you can go to, and some of them are as small as a room.
Right.
But they all have so much stuff. And they don't at the same time. One of the rooms says nothing ever happens except for 2 times out of the year. But you gotta keep checking that room just in case something is happening, like the riverbank.
The riverbank.
Right? You gotta keep checking that just in case. There's a dog there sometimes, and maybe you talk to that dog and you help the dog.
That's what I'm working on right now. I've got to find the dog because it just shows up.
The dog just shows up random parts of town, man. That dog, and it's not every day either. It's Tuesday, Thursday. Or
Wait, does he show up at places other than the riverbank?
Yeah.
Once you get that quest,
there's a fox quest. It's the dog ran away, and you have to make friends with the dog several times at several points in town.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then eventually, because you have to talk to the dog, be nice to it 4 or 5 times, and then the dog will let you give it food. And when you do give it food, then it runs back home or something like that.
And that completes the foxes.
Yeah. And then the town itself is full of life, despite them being this town is dreary and nothing happens. But you're in there and you're like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't know what they don't. These kids.
They don't
appreciate
kids.
it.
Youth is wasted on the young.
Yeah.
But the story itself, it's the opposite of the passive storytelling we got from Portal, right? Where this is here's the story in your face. This is happening, and then they give you 2 weeks of no story. And then it's story in your face, people kidnapped, go save them. No story. Right? So it's not, there's no passive storytelling, because when in those 2 weeks of no story, nothing for the main story is happening at all. Right? It's just you're doing your own thing. But you get to advance your own stories. Just mind-blowing. Right? So like John said, this is the game that you want it to be. So if you want to know more about Chie, go talk to her. If you don't go talk to her. Right? And then the symbolism, which we'll get to. Things I don't like is the find more information quests, where it's I can't locate them in here. I need so when you go to the TV, sometimes you won't be able to find immediately where the bad person is, where the person you need to save is. So you have to figure it out by getting more information on them, so that your search and rescue party can sniff them out, basically. And for you to do that, you have to go into town and talk to several different people on several different days.
And it feels random.
It feels random, and the way they go is oh, you have to talk to a police officer, but there's no police officer in town that day, so you don't know if that means did I miss him? Did I not go to a specific place? Do I have to talk to someone else? Or do I come back the next day? And honestly, you can miss an entire dungeon if you don't figure out what to do.
Adachi.
Yeah.
Man, that guy. Here's the thing. I have a working theory, and if I'm wrong on this, I'll eat my shoes. And it's fine. I won't really. But I believe there's a good chance that Adachi is our murderer. Because he came to town the same day as us, and he's got black...
No, he doesn't come to town the same day as you. He's been there for a year.
Oh, has he? Right.
Yeah.
Never mind then.
Yeah.
I retract that theory.
No, he's been there
Right.
He's been there...
I thought he also was I'm new. I just showed up.
No,
I'm
sorry.
well.
He is new, but he's not he's been there for a while.
He also has black eyes as well.
I don't trust
Interesting. Black
Adachi.
eyes.
He's a little too open to befriending a teenager.
That's interesting, because in Persona, he's not a... it's different. His
But not as
confidence is
open as
different.
your second teacher. Let me tell you. She's...
Your second teacher is real open.
befriending teenagers.
Yeah, befriending teenagers. And also real jealous of other teenagers.
Yikes.
Maybe.
There's some sketchy parts in this game.
Maybe that's not something we should
think-
be talking about, but sorry.
Adachi suffers from the Wheatley syndrome, where I'm this dude is too bumbling, kind of thing. But then we found out that Wheatley was made to be bumbling. So it's
But Adachi is a person.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's true. But I was just I don't know, this is too much. But it's kind of the more you do his social link, the more you understand kind of where he comes from.
All right.
Same with same thing with Kanji. This dude is too dumb, but the more you understand, he's not actually dumb. He's just a meathead.
Yeah.
Right. But also Kanji's a meathead in a small town whose parents run a textile shop, who isn't planning to go anywhere or do much. So that makes sense. But he at some point passed a police academy exam.
Oh, Adachi?
Adachi.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
And he got hired on as a detective.
He got hired on as a
And
detective.
he talks about that.
Okay.
Yeah, in his social link.
Interesting.
Yeah.
One thing about this game that I don't know if we were going to get into this today, but I will say there is a uncomfortable sexualization of teenagers.
Yes. Part of that, yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Problematic. Like, and I can't remember who it was who said this, but like, there's a reason why things tend to be set in high school rather than college, and partially that's because thank you, and that's because like high school is more universal than college is. But at the same time, when I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, so Rise's dungeon is so very sexualized.
Yes. And
they do a good job with it, but I'm like, this would be much better if we just said she was like 19 instead of what, like 16 or 17?
Yeah, she's like 15.
Yeah.
She's a year younger than you, so she's 15, 16.
19 instead of 15?
Yeah.
Just saying, because that makes a difference.
I totally makes a difference, and I totally agree with you. I think let's put a pin in this, and we'll bring this up. We'll have like a sexual theme version or theme discussion in episode 3.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing I will say though is that like, and I'm not saying this is okay by any stretch of the imagination. Part of it's Japanese culture for us, Westerners, 18 is the cutoff for acceptable. Obviously 19 is still not great. But that's Japanese culture. 14 is the age of consent.
Oh, I see.
So it changes a little bit, right?
Oh, okay. That does make sense.
And we'll talk about this next week. But that's kind of just one thing to keep in mind, that this is a Japanese game for Japanese audiences.
Yeah. That
was ported to the West, right?
Okay. I wondered if that was like part of it.
But yeah, it's still not okay.
Still not great.
Still not okay. Yeah. And we're gonna talk about why they do these things a little more than just like tropey fan service. It's not. There's some of that, but it's not only that.
Sure.
Right.
Okay.
They do it more deeply than most things. But yeah, that's a good point. We'll get back to this in episode 3 because we'll have Kanji, Rise's dungeon, and Naoto's dungeon to discuss. I don't like how some of the social links are locked behind maxed out stats.
Oh, I disagree.
There's a social link that's maxed out behind that you don't even know about. That is locked out behind a maxed out stat.
I disagree.
You disagree?
Yeah.
I think that it shouldn't be maxed out. I think it should be level 4 because maxed out means that if I max that out early in the game, then I can never. I just basically wasted my time to get there. I feel like
in order to. Yeah, I feel like one of the parts of this game is this min-maxy feel, which means that in order to do certain things, you're going to have to let go of other certain things, especially on a first playthrough. And I feel like making certain things only achievable behind that maxed out stat, even if it's an early on, makes you feel like getting that maxed out stat is worthwhile. So it makes you want to experience FOMO. In a peak sense, right?
To me, it doesn't do that. It means like I'm gonna have to play this game again to see this. Because like I will not max out the stat on the point that will get me a meaningful social link with this person. So I'm gonna have to come around when I already have max whatever.
Gotcha.
And I think that part of that, and I think that the reason I don't think it should be maxed out is because like I would like to at least start it, but I'm not going to put time into this if.
But you feel like you should be able to experience every part of a game on the first playthrough if you did an optimal playthrough.
And you can.
Yeah.
If you like schedule everything and use the guides on the internet of like every day what you should do, you can. I don't think that. I think the New Game Plus should be a fun add-on, not a if you want to do everything, you need the New Game Plus. Right? That's my biggest criticism here.
I guess I disagree about New Game Plus. I feel like the purpose of a New Game Plus is to allow you to play the game coming in able to do everything right away, right?
No, I agree with you, but if you have that max out stat and they only require 4, you're still able to do it right away, whereas when you first start, you have to wait until you're level 4 to do it, instead of 5.
That makes New Game Plus meaningful. I would never play a New Game Plus ever if that wasn't the case.
I think we're saying the same thing.
Gotcha.
I just think that the requirements should be like one step lower. But the New Game Plus would still be key because it's likely I still won't do it.
Gotcha. You just want it like one step.
Yeah, and if it's like for you to max it out, you need 5. Totally fine because you do need that for some. But for you to start it, you need level 5. I feel like that shouldn't be the case.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All right, let's move on a little bit here. So, Brandon, you said what were your likes and dislikes? You said massive amount of customization and player options.
I do like that, and I do like the sheer just variety of this game. It's one of the few games I play where I'm like, oh, what if I had done this instead? Like, and I kind of want to go back and find out, right?
Saves come, baby.
Right. So this is definitely one of those games where it's like I see the appeal of playing it again, whereas like I've already uninstalled Portal and Hades. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah, I haven't installed Hades, but I did uninstall Portal too, actually.
Yeah. So like, there's some games you play on once, and it's like, what?
I needed the space on my hard drive.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. Yeah. It's like there's some games you play once, like meh, and then there are other games where it's like, but what if I go back and I try this build instead? And this is definitely one of those games for me. So that's...
Yeah, and because you get so many save files, you don't necessarily have to restart.
Like 35?
16.
16 save files. I'm on save file number 11, in case you care when the Steam Deck comes back.
Oh, no, I don't.
I've only been saving in one file. I've done no save scumming at all.
We've been saving on one file?
Yeah.
Man, that's bold.
That's a lot of trust in a game written in 2008.
And part of why I don't do that is because like I save right before the summer camp, because if I want to go back and do different answers and see what happens.
Oh, I see.
I do that. So a lot of my saves are not based on like, oh, I messed something up. It's more like I want to see this event again.
Right.
Kind of thing.
So yeah, those are likes. I'm really enjoying the game. I think it's a lot of fun, a lot of customization, and just a lot of depth if you want to get into it, which I'm playing on very easy, so I think I could probably cruise through the actual combat portions of the game, mostly just clicking A about 6,000 times. I'm not quite doing that, but let's just say it did take me an embarrassingly long time to realize that I can take full control of every party member.
Yeah, they don't do a good job of explaining that as you do in Persona 5.
Yeah, and so I now have control of every party member, but I still haven't like even done as much strategy as like you have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I haven't coordinated the whole group. I'm still really figuring out the whole Persona thing.
And I mean, I think that's kind of how it goes. That's why the New Game Plus is also... Like, this game would have New Game Plus no matter what, because you get so much better at understanding how personas work and how you have to build your own character in terms of your party, that when you play again, you're like, I want to like maximize my builds.
Yeah. And which, can you raise the difficulty on a New Game Plus?
You like I believe the super hard or very hard or whatever it's called, the one that's like, if you hate yourself, do this. I believe that used to be locked behind the New Game Plus, but now it's just like you can just do it. So if you want to do New Game Plus, you can do very hard and do like deal less damage, take more damage, get less money, all this kind of stuff.
Okay, that's cool. I might even give that a shot. Dislikes. Should I get into dislikes? Dislikes. And this is a weird criticism, because it's probably the only game I would ever like really actually kind of... No, I would hold this against other games. I'll retract that. I love that this game actually rewards you and changes things based on how you interact with the characters, right? Because there are some video games where, you know, the NPC represented by John here comes up to me, it's like, hi, do you want to be my friend? I'm like, no, you should like go... And I say like some really vulgar things to him, and then we're still friends.
Yeah, and the NPC's like, oh, don't be like that. We're best friends now.
Right.
It's the Nimona.
Like, Hop.
Yeah, Hop and Nimona. Yeah, and Pokemon Syndrome.
Whereas in this game, that is not the case. And I actually really like that, and I like how it rewards you for actually befriending people, right? So it's like a very pro-social game, which I appreciate, especially it like pushes back against that thing about gamers being loners, because this is not a game.
And gamers being loners is a misconception anyway.
Right.
But yeah.
Right, and I like that. And one of the things I do like about this game is that it kind of pushes back on some of that stuff. However, that being said, so like I said, in the game, I asked Chie out, and so she and I are dating. I wish the game did more to incorporate that, because pretty much right after Chie and I started dating, which I had been angling for a while, right? Because I just decided that's the direction I wanted to take the story, right?
Yeah.
So I finally achieved that. Almost right after that, we did the, I got my, like, motorcycle license.
Yeah,
scooter.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole, let's go pick up chicks in the city thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I wanted a dialogue option to be like,
I'm dating Chie right now.
Yeah, it's like, I'm dating Chie, I'm actually taken, I can't do this. Yeah. And there wasn't one.
Yeah.
And I just wish that would have come up at some point, like, I think Yukiko and I are also moving this direction, and it's like...
It'd be funny if you could be like, I'm dating Chie, and Yosuke's like, shut up, I know that's not true, and you still go, but at least you said it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Like, I just want there to be... And I also feel like sometimes in my group interactions with Chie, there's no sense that Chie and I are a couple.
Yeah, there isn't one.
It's only when, like, we're one-on-one.
Yep.
And so I wish that, like, because that decision to like partner with someone, I mean, not maybe a little bit less so in high school, right? But like, if we're dating someone right now, at least at this point in our lives,
there should be jealousy. There should be some sort of.
It's a big deal, right? And so I wish it were more of a big deal that had more of an effect on the actual game mechanics. Like, I wouldn't be going and like flirting with I. Is that how you pronounce it?
I, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be going and flirting with I because it's like, no.
Her name is the character for love.
No, it's interesting.
Get out of here.
Because it's like I have a girlfriend, and like in cutscenes, you would also expect that to have some kind of a role. Because in theory, at least, Chie and the hero,
You Narukami.
Yeah, you should be interacting with each other differently.
I totally agree with you, and there's 3 things I'm gonna say. So
Sure.
two of them are explanations. Sort of one explanation is like these are weird, awkward teenagers, and they don't know how to act in front of a group of elder friends as if they're dating.
That's true.
The second one is the game. It doesn't necessarily push you towards dating multiple people, because like if you get to the point in like level 9 when one of the other girls is like, why do you hang out with me so much? And you can be like, because I like you, or because we're friends.
Yeah.
The game tells you like, remember, you are already dating another girl, so choose your words carefully. But at the same time, the game does, I'm gonna say reward, but it's not really reward, and we'll talk about this afterwards. If you do date more than one girl in the game, you get a scene that you can't get otherwise, but the scene isn't the good one. It's like you get an anime, not an anime cutscene, but like an interaction that is not a good one, but you only get it if you date multiple girls.
But they accuse you of being a philanderer.
Yeah, basically. However, the third thing I will say is that there will be interactions in the group where all of a sudden there is a question posed that you can answer about the different female interests,
Yep.
and depending on how you answer, people will react differently.
Yes or no. There's been a few of those.
So like one of them, I'm going to give you an example. One of them, they asked like, "This is who do you think looked better in this like
Swimsuit.
in the swimsuit?" And depending on what you say, different people will react, and not only the girls, but like Yosuke will be like, "Wait, did you?" And they keep going.
Well, yeah, I said like, Chie, you look cute,
Yeah.
and I specifically chose that because
Yes. So there will be more of those, and there's one specifically that like this is a mild spoiler, but you get to go on a date with someone you choose at the summer festival.
Yep.
yeah.
And depending, like a couple of days later, they'll talk about like, "I remember the summer festival was super fun," and you slip out like, "Oh yeah, like the second day was awesome." They're like, "Wait, second day? Well, who did you like? What did you go with? Who did you go?" And then you can say, and you can like just kind of look down, or like you can like look at the person and then look down. You can choose that, and then Yosuke notices and he's like, "Oh my god," and the kind of topic continues. So
Okay.
there are small things like that, but none of them alters the plot.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is good. I do wish it also like
I agree.
alter the plot
Yeah, I agree.
more.
I think mechanically, I think they do it to not to push in a direction, but like to be like, no matter what happens, this is still a group of your friends, right?
Mhm.
But yes, I agree with you that I wish that made it my Badoo, because Persona 5 doesn't do that either. Yeah.
Yeah. So makers of the Persona series.
Yes.
Make relationships matter.
Yes.
Yes.
John, a like and dislike.
So I'll go in a different direction because you guys covered a lot of my likes already. I really love the music.
Music is amazing. Music's
to the
good.
point where I have been putting it on my Spotify playlist.
Oh, I
because
have
it makes me feel like a little Persona
a
character.
Spotify playlist called Purse Owner, because that's like a meme, like that people call it Purse Owner, and it's just music from Personas 1 through 5 plus the spin-offs.
It's good.
Nice.
Whoever does their music, just
It's a couple of different guys, a couple of different like teams. They've changed, but the music is always amazing, and I always get like the vocalists are amazing, the rapper's good.
the rapper's
The
pretty
rapper's good. Yeah.
Yeah, the da 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 da. That Superman song's great. It's also so funny because it's like a combination of Japanese and like vague English words.
Yeah,
so it
yeah.
almost sounds like a song that would happen in like a game of Sims. Like I understand like there is real English happening here, but because it's a mix of the two and it's like vague English words, it sticks in your head as a song, but not as like the lyrics don't matter.
And it's interesting because like Persona 3 is like straight up like Japanese influenced American hip hop influenced Japanese rap.
Yeah.
Persona 3, right? Persona 4 is like Japanese American influenced Japanese synth poppy.
Yep.
Right. Persona 5 is acid jazz.
I'm here for it.
It's and they're all amazing. Yeah, incredible.
That sounds great. Didn't like. What did I put down?
The dungeon running.
Oh, dungeon running. Yeah. So one of the big things I don't like is that, as I said, I'm a scheduler, so I'm scheduling everything out, and the game wants you to go back into these dungeons and experience them more than once, but there really isn't enough incentive to do that, and like all of the incentive is to do this dungeon in one afternoon as fast and as clean as possible. And on very easy, where you can just pay the fox to heal you, you can do that without any issue. And so it does mean that I really experience almost two games. I experience like Persona, the game where I'm playing and experiencing life in this small town, and then I run dungeons for 4 hours straight.
Yep.
And then I go back and experience the game, and then I run dungeons. And I think there is a way, they haven't done it, but there's got to be a way for them to like do breakup dungeons or little combats between dungeons or ways to make it more meaningful.
And kind of what they try to do there, right, is that like if you go back into the TV after you beat a dungeon, right, and you talk to Rise, who's a navigator, or Teddy at the time, they'll tell you, oh, there's a really new powerful shadow that showed up in Yukiko's castle if you want to go check it out. So they have mini bosses. And if you beat those mini bosses, they will give you the best weapon possible for that character.
Yeah.
The dungeon. So they try to do it. It's kind of out of your way, right? So I think.
Well, and if you're playing on very easy, there's no reason to.
Yeah.
Because it also, they made it waste a whole day. Like if they had made it just waste an afternoon or just use part of a day, I might go back and do it more. But the fact that like you can't even study that night.
I don't think it always wastes a whole day.
Does it not always?
If you go to if you go into the TV to do side quests, it doesn't waste the whole day.
Okay, I'll try that out when I get home.
But it's I think Persona 5 does strike a much better balance because like in between Persona 5's big dungeons, which are called palaces, there is a randomly generated element that you can go and do. So like the palaces in Persona 5 are not randomly generated.
Gotcha.
The dungeons aren't, but this one thing that you can do whenever you want is, and you can just keep going there to like. And the side quests in Persona 5 aren't like, I want this one really weird item that you can only find if this one cognitive being drops it.
Right.
In Persona 5, it's like smaller targets that you have to change their hearts. So it's like a person that's like, this person has been being mean to cats, so you have to go into the metaverse to like beat them up.
That would be
so
really
they start
cool.
being mean to cats in real life.
Well, and that was another thing. So these dungeons, they are randomly generated, right?
Yeah.
In 4
procedurally generated.
Yeah.
Except for like the Yukiko level where you teleport and stuff like that. Every other level is generated procedurally.
And they could definitely take a few points out of Hades' books on procedural generation.
Yeah.
Their procedural generation is 2008.
Yeah.
But their procedural generation is pretty boring.
Yeah. It's not great.
Like if it was a long hallway with shadows between each door, it would make almost zero difference to me. And mostly the maze aspect just makes it take longer.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it more fun. So they could have made it a lot more.
Which
like,
I mean, it is what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it longer. Like if I was listening to like people talk about Persona 2 and 1, and it's like these dungeons are just mazes, and like in those games, it's not like you walk to Shadow and like hit it. It's a random encounter like Pokemon, and apparently the encounter rate is high, so you're like taking forever in those dungeons. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
so
thank you.
yeah. So procedurally, game companies in general, procedurally generating things to make your game longer is a bad reason to procedurally generate stuff.
So much better at that now.
Good. And I almost say with this game, because it's so much depth about like character development, non-procedural generation would be better. Because I'd like to have more like story beat encounters.
Right.
It would.
Yeah,
part of it is
dungeon.
yeah, and part of it is that is harder to do. It takes a lot more time than to procedurally generate something.
Oh, I'm sure.
And this game must have taken a long time to develop.
So this game came out in 08. Persona 3 came out in I think 05 or 06. So it didn't take that long. It's because they just repeated the same engine. So all they had to do was create the new characters.
Gotcha.
Right.
They did a good job.
From Persona 4 to 5, where they redid the entire engine, that took 8 years. And right now, Persona 5 came out in 2016-17, 16 in the East, 17 in the West.
We're like 8 years out.
So we're 8 years out, and people are saying like, okay, people are like, it was supposed to be announced. There's some rumors that like the pandemic kind of pushed it back a year, and that like they've been pushing it back because Persona 5 was doing so well that they re-released 3 and 4. So they like were working on that for a little bit to make money there.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I agree with you that like the dungeons are definitely not the most entertaining.
Optimal.
Yeah, but
I'm
but
with
you
you.
do get into like a rhythm in there, which is kind of cool.
And the combat's great.
Combat's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're kind of running out of time here, but I wanted to do like one symbolism, like because we're going to talk a lot about symbolism in the last. So the last episode will be mostly like the story and the symbolism.
Controversy.
Right? Controversy. Which we won't spend too much time on, but it'll be a lot of the symbolism we didn't get to today. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, because we won't get to kanji today, because of we want to cover that with Naoto and Rise. But let's talk about like just symbolism of one character and like this character, their shadow, and like they don't have a dungeon, but like their persona, right? So Chie.
Mhm.
So Chie, her entire life she's been told that she's not feminine enough, right? Yukiko was what she saw as the ideal woman. That's why she wanted to protect her. And when you go into Yukiko's dungeon, you find Shadow Chie saying like, "That's right, like Yukiko needs me because I need her to need me," basically.
Right.
So it eventually this becomes a distorted desire, which is why her shadow comes out, which is like, I need to protect her to keep her away from others so that she still needs me.
So she can serve me.
Yes, exactly. So she is Shadow Boss. Do you remember that?
She is.
She is
She
like
is.
Shadow Boss. Do you remember what it looks like?
No.
It's 3 sub women.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
now
Stacked
I
on
remember.
top of
Yeah,
each
yeah,
other
yeah.
with a whip wielding dominatrix on top of them,
Wearing like a full leather
Yes.
suit.
Yeah.
Yes.
And her hair is like tentacles.
Yes.
There's another imagery, right? So like, it's interesting that she's a dominatrix, not on top of men, but on top of other girls who are all wearing the full Japanese school uniform that she doesn't wear, that is considered feminine, right?
That she rides around.
She rides around on top
on their back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like a clearly female. Like her pose is very feminine, right? She's like cross. She has her legs crossed, and she like is holding her arms, and she's like literally a whip. And I think it's in your face, but it's also like demonstrates her want to not only be more feminine, but not necessarily to attract boys, right? To attract other, because she is attracted to boys, as you find out. But she just believes that like more feminine girls are better than her at this point, and she wants to be on top of them.
Well, and it's really interesting because the shadows always represent a negative, right? So even though Persona is embodying this
Maybe.
shadow,
It represents a part of you that you're denying, then it becomes a negative.
no, but I'm saying the shadow Sona, the
Yeah.
warped, terrible version is a part that you've denied. So
Yes.
Persona is not
it doesn't
saying
mean
like
it doesn't mean it's negative. It's a part that became distorted, so now it's negative.
right,
Yeah.
or this distortion is negative.
Yes, yeah.
Right, and so I don't think one of the interesting things is like even though we see this terrible imagery necessarily, right, of this dominatrix whipping through women on top, the game is very much saying this is what this looks like when it's unhealthy.
Yes,
Right?
absolutely.
Is
And
that you're
that's-
just using people.
Yep.
It's definitely a negative commentary. They're not doing it for like shock value or lasciviousness.
No,
it's
yeah, it's-
definitely a
it's-
negative statement on
It is a negative statement. It's like, again, and a lot of people will just play this and be like, wow, that's weird. It's like a whole ass dominatrix. But it's like, the reason is because she doesn't feel like she's good enough as a woman, so that to her is a representation that got distorted of like, how do I make myself feel like I'm a woman by controlling other women? And that's what she tries to do with Yukiko, and it becomes distorted. It came from a place of like, I need to protect her, to I need her so that I can protect her, basically. Right? Any comments, anything to add?
I thought that was all really good. So
I appreciate it.
Great.
But then if you get into like when her shadow becomes, she accepts and she's like, I know you're a part of me. I didn't
It
know I want to
changes.
admit it. And it's cool because the discussion they have is always like super open, right, between the shadow and the real person. Because the real person's like, you know what? I know you're me. I don't want to admit it, but I have to, and I'm gonna do my best to never let this happen again, kind of thing. And so they become, which is like a really mature conversation. So they become a persona, and when they become a persona, they all have symbolism too. So Chie's persona is called Tomoe.
It's Bruce Lee.
It's Bruce Lee,
Yep.
right? Why is it Bruce Lee?
she loves kung fu movies.
She loves kung fu movies. So it's a female samurai dressed as Bruce Lee in Game of Death,
In the
which is
yellow
tradition-
tracksuit.
The yellow tracksuit.
Yep.
Tomoe, the name of the persona, is a female samurai, like a real person, one of the few female samurai in the gameplay period. Extremely rare. Like we have all seen Mulan, right? Not the same country, but same ideals. Had to be remarkably skilled for you to get to this point, to even be accepted as a samurai, and she was like said to be one of the best samurai in her domain. And because of this, we historians have a really hard time at discerning what is fact and what is fiction from her life, because she has become a legend.
Right.
And as we know, personas are based on legendary figures and deities.
Mythology.
So Tomoe is venerated as kind of a groundbreaking samurai that was stronger than most samurai men, and she was venerated for her bravery and her will to charge first to protect others that weren't as skilled as her, which is what Chie does. And Chie's and she disappeared without a trace. So like there's no record of her death. She just disappears, which is again ephemerality of the persona. But so that represents Chie love for kung fu movies. She wants to protect others. She is the one woman in this like male dominated like part of physical combat, right? And then if you think about what Chie represents as a person in real life, her arc is about wanting to get stronger so she can protect others, right? She needs to get stronger herself mentally and physically so she can always be protecting others. And her persona is the only one that learns all hitting physical attacks.
Interesting.
Because she wants to protect everyone.
Well, yeah, it's instead of dominating people, right? She's protecting and serving them. Like, I am almost 100% positive that Chie becomes a cop later on.
Interesting.
Or a police officer.
I think you're right.
I think that's
you're right, actually.
where she goes. Like, the positive, resolved Jungian version of Chie is somebody that is comfortable protecting and serving others through physical force, which is like what a cop should be, not a dominating force.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So, yeah, she just is like, there's a lot of symbolism to all the stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so that's just one of them. So then there's like 9 main characters, and then every other NPC also has stuff like this, right?
Amazing.
So we'll get to more stuff like this on our next episode, which will be in a couple weeks.
I want to talk about the baby.
The baby is good symbolism.
I want to talk about the baby.
One of the shadows is a baby protected by an RPG hero. You'll get to that next. But we'll talk about that.
And because I haven't worked out what that means.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
So that'd be good.
I think that one we'll get to.
We'll get to it.
So our first impressions overview, right? So I think we're maybe 40 hours in or 15 hours in, and an hour and a half into the show, but we're not done yet.
We're not done yet.
Next episode will be full spoilers on the story, since we already talked about mechanics and stuff. It will mostly be story and symbolism, and some of the controversy with this game.
End game, if we can get there.
End game, and the true ending, right? If we can get there, we'll see.
Oh, that'd be good.
And there are some major story beats still to uncover. Figuring out who the killer is. Why can we go into TVs? Like, why? Like, do we figure that out? Maybe.
How are people disappearing?
All this kind of stuff.
Okay,
So yeah, tune in a couple of weeks for our full review of Persona 4 Golden. Until then, I remain Professor Phil Chavot. He's Professor John Adams. He's Professor Brendan West. And together, we're professors who play video games. And we'll see y'all in a couple of weeks with a full spoiler cast at Persona 4 Golden.
See you then.